Start off with a story from New Jersey. A few years ago, our pension fund and our public employee health benefit fund together was over $130 billion in debt. And we put together a plan to do the things that they should be doing here in Washington, D.C. on entitlements, raise the retirement age, end cost of living adjustments, more penalties for early retirement, and more money being put into the system by the people who are actually benefiting from it. And after we proposed this, you can imagine that I was extraordinarily popular with the public employee unions. And so we decided to do what we do in New Jersey, not to go to the Chamber of Commerce and have a lunch. I decided to go to the New Jersey Firefighters Convention. Went to the Firefighters Convention, and I was introduced, and it was significantly a longer walk to the stage than it was up here. And that entire time, I was being bathed in the love of the public employee unions. When I got up to the stage, the person running the convention said, "Governor, I'm sorry for the reception." I said, No. I came up to the podium like this, and I said, as they were booing the hell out of me, I said, "Come on, you can do better than that. Let's go." And they did. And then I said to them, I had a prepared remarks to make, and I took them, and I tore them up, and I threw it at the side of the stage. And I said, so here's the thing. I understand that you're angry. And I understand that you feel deceived. And I understand why you're booing. The only thing I don't understand is why you're booing the first person to ever come here and told you the truth. The truth is that if we don't change these pensions, you're not going to collect them. That's the truth. And the fact is that for each and every one of you, you may hate me now, but 10 years from now, after I've made the changes that need to be made and you're collecting your pension, you'll be looking for my address on the internet to send me a thank you note for saving the retirement for you and your families. The amazing thing that happened was that after I was done with those remarks, and I ended 6 minutes, 7 minutes, tops, I walked off the stage, and 2/3 of the audience was cheering. Here's the reason why and what I want to talk to you about this morning. The fact is, we've got to start talking about what we're for and not what we're against. And the reason for that is very, very simple. And it's exactly what I said to CPAC in Chicago in 2012. The reason we have to start talking about what we're for and not continuing to rail against what we're against is because of one simple reason. Our ideas are better than their ideas, and that's what we have to stand up for. And if you need any further example of that, just look at what's going on in terms of what they're for in Washington, D.C. What they're for in Washington, D.C. is to have the leader of the Senate Democrats stand up and rail against two American entrepreneurs who have built a business, created jobs, and created wealth and philanthropy in this country. Harry Reid should get back to work and stop picking on great Americans who are creating great things in our country. And that's typical. It's typical of the contrast between what's happening with governors and what's happening in Washington. And there are lots of examples that I could tell you about, and I am going to tell you about. Governors are about getting things done. Governors are about making government work and keeping government out of people's lives as much as they can. And we've got lots of examples of it. Look at what's happened in Wisconsin with my friend Governor Scott Walker. Scott Walker stood up for collective bargaining reform, and you know what's happened to the teachers union in Wisconsin? Their membership is down 60% because Scott Walker made it voluntary to join the union in Wisconsin. People are voting with their feet. In Ohio, John Kasich stood up against the crazy ideas the Democrats had in Ohio that was causing economic depression in that state. And what you have now in Ohio, because of John Kasich, is lower taxes and more jobs and an unemployment rate that's lower than the national average. That's getting things done in a state like Ohio with John Kasich. How about Michigan? How about Michigan, where Governor Rick Snyder has made Michigan the home of the UAW, a right-to-work state. And in Florida, Rick Scott has taken an unemployment rate that he inherited well over 11% and brought it to under the national average, and because of free market conservative ideas has created over 450,000 new private sector jobs in 3 years in Florida. That's because governors, Republican governors across this country, have stood up and done things, not just talked about them. And what you see in Washington is people who only want to talk. They can't stop talking. The most dangerous 10 feet in Washington, D.C. is between anybody who wants to start talking and a camera. This is what they're about. And you can see it an example not only with the dysfunction in Congress, but one story that I love about the president. You remember when they set up this whole super committee thing, right? Way back when they were trying to resolve the budget problems and all the rest. They set up a super committee, and after the super committee got nothing done, what did the White House say? The White House said the president never met with the super committee or got involved with them because he knew they were doomed to failure. Man, that's leadership, isn't it? You're the leader of the government. You see something getting ready to go off the rails, and what you decide to do is stay as far away from it as possible. Well, my question now is the same question I had then. If that's your attitude, Mr. President, what the hell are we paying you for? Leadership is about getting in and getting something done and making government work. Leadership is not about standing on the sidelines and spitballing. And that's all we see all across Washington, D.C., but it's not what we see in the states. Here's another thing we've got to stop doing. We have to stop letting the media define who we are and what we stand for. Because when we talk about what we're for, no matter what state we're in, our ideas win. Look at what we've done in New Jersey, a state that Barack Obama won by 17 points in 2012. Today, the fiscal year 2015 budget I proposed just a week ago has $2.2 billion less in discretionary spending than the state was spending in 2008. Now, if you had said that a blue state would do something like that, you would have said we were crazy. But we continue to talk about our ideas that government needs to be smaller. We have 6,000 fewer state